Fresno today, which resulted in 3 people being shot and killed at 3 different locations. And I want to go over just some brief information regarding how that incident occurred and how our officers came in contact with the suspect. The suspect is in custody on this case. At 10:45 a.m., our department received a gunshot detection alert through ShotSpotter. That activation was in the 300 block of North Van Ness, and it was for 2 gunshot rounds that had been fired. That immediately triggered a response from our department. We had officers en route to this incident. We also had a second activation that was nearby with 4 rounds fired. Shortly thereafter, followed by a third and a fourth activation with 6 rounds fired and then 4 rounds. All 16 of these rounds were fired in less than a minute within 4 different locations. About that same time, we ended up with a vehicle, a PG&E pickup truck that pulled up to the west side of Police Department headquarters at Fresno and M Street. The driver of that vehicle ran up to headquarters and notified individuals that his passenger had been shot. What we have determined that the passenger in that PG&E pickup was shot by the suspect that we have in custody. It was unprovoked, and this individual fired as that passenger was in the vehicle. Fortunately, the driver of the PG&E truck, the employee, drove to headquarters and notified us. We also know that after the suspect in this case shot the individual in the PG&E truck, that he began to walk westbound on Mildreda from Fulton, from Van Ness, and as he did so, he encountered a resident in the area, fired a number of rounds at that individual, but fortunately missed. He continued westbound on Mildreda. When he got to Fulton Street, he at that time encountered another white male, fired several rounds at this individual, striking him and killing him. It appears that at that point in time he was armed with a revolver. He unloaded his or dropped the shell casings and reloaded with more ammunition. Continued on to Catholic Charities, which is in the 100 block of North Fulton. And as he did so, he encountered an individual that was in the parking lot, a white male, and he fired rounds at this individual as well, striking him, and that person is deceased. Fortunately, as a result of the gunshot detection system through ShotSpotter, we had an immediate response from our officers. One of our officers was traveling eastbound on Divisadero at Fulton when he saw a black male running southbound on Fulton. Immediately upon that individual seeing the officer, he literally dove onto the ground and was taken into custody. And as he was taken into custody, he yelled out, Ali Akbar. And we had been looking for this individual. This individual, Corey Ali Mohammed, was wanted for a murder that occurred on April 13th, Thursday evening, at the Motel 6. At approximately 11 p.m., just after 11 p.m., he encountered 2 security guards there as a result of a conflict that he had with them. And unprovoked, he shot one of those security guards who was unarmed multiple times. He then turned that firearm on a second security guard that was up on a stairwell landing and attempted to shoot him. However, that fortunately he was out of bullets at that time, and no one else was injured. We have been looking for this individual ever since then. We identified him very quickly and have been attempting to locate him. This morning we actually put out a media release to the media. We had our special response teams looking for him since late Thursday night. We've also did some research on Corey Mohammed, and we looked at his Facebook. We know that he has some posts that says that he does not like white people, and also on that post that he has expressed some anti-government sentiments. And so fortunately he is in custody, and he has been taken to headquarters at this time. He's obviously going to be charged with 4 counts of murder and 1 count or 2 counts of attempted murder. and we will be interviewing them. Based on the statement he made today, and based on some of the postings he has had on Facebook, we've been in contact with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I'm certain that they're going to be very interested in this case. We'll also be working with the ATF and attempting to locate the origin of that firearm. And we have not located that firearm as at this point. We know that the suspect, after the last shooting, ended up throwing the firearm or just prior to being taken into custody. We have a canine in the area that is searching for that weapon. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Just understand that we're relatively new in this investigation, and the information that I provided you today is preliminary information.
Is this a terrorist act?
Too early to say whether or not this involves terrorism. Certainly by the statement that was made, it could give that indication. However, there was no statement made on Thursday night when he shot a security guard and killed him. There was no comments or no statements made at that time. So not certain why he said what he said today, but I'm sure through the course of the interview we'll be able to determine why.
And were these random shootings?
Pardon me?
The victims weren't known to him, right?
All the shootings that occurred today were random. All three victims were approached by him. They were unprovoked attacks, and we're trying to identify who those individuals are at this time. It is not any employees of Catholic Charities, but it appears to be at least two of those individuals were clients of Catholic Charities and had just left the location. And again, individual that was in a PG&E truck. We're in contact with him trying to determine whether or not that is an employee or some other individual that was in the truck with them. In terms of on his person, he was shot in the 300 block of North Van Ness, which was where the initial gunshot detection activation occurred. He was seated, based on what we know, he was seated in the passenger side of that vehicle. And when Corey Mohammed walked up and began to fire into the PG&E truck, fortunately the driver in that vehicle sped away very quickly and transported him to headquarters. He was then taken to the hospital from that location by ambulance. Unfortunately, he was pronounced deceased.
So they were stopped in traffic when this happened?
I don't know what the PG&E worker was doing prior to the shooting occurring. We just know that he was in the 300 block of North Van Ness.
Do we know if this man had been on an FBI watch list or anything like this, or is the FBI just getting involved possibly now?
I do not know what information the FBI has had on this individual in the past. I can tell you that we were well aware of him in terms of being wanted for a murder and attempt murder last Thursday evening, and have been looking for him around the clock.
When did you identify him as the suspect in the Thursday?
Corey Mohammed was identified within a few hours of the shooting that occurred Thursday night. We had some very good video at the Motel 6 that clearly showed not only the shooting, but also gave a very clear picture of his face. It was through that follow-up investigation we identified him that night.
Can you tell us then why we didn't know, we, being media and the public, until this morning, that this the guy?
We were exhausting some follow-up leads that we had. We had some sightings of Corey Mohammed. One of those sightings was in Madera. We had looked at that location. We had also put out an alert to every one of our officers and law enforcement agencies throughout Fresno to be on the lookout for him. We had been in contact with family members and trying to locate him. And at one point, he had posted on his Facebook that he was actually in Atlanta. We found that out to not be true.
Do we know if he had family members who live in the area that he may have been staying with, or what would have led him to this area?
Based on the information we have, he's been either staying out on the streets. We don't know if he's been staying with family members or friends, but quite frankly, most of the people had disassociated themselves with him.
Do you have an age on him?
Corey Mohammed is 39 years of age. Again, he has some criminal history, weapons violations, drugs, false imprisonment, terrorism, terrorist threats, and although he has associated with gangs, we don't have him necessarily validated as a gang member.
Tell me where about his Facebook post, anything which shows like his affiliation with ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something like
You know, it's really too early on, and I don't want to interfere with any investigation the FBI may have. So I don't want to talk about anything other than what we have seen on the Facebook post. Again, don't know if he was on any type of a watch list, but what we do know is that he was a very violent individual in our city, and he has committed 4 murders and 2 attempt murders.
Can you tell me where he has this criminal history? Because I looked him up this morning and I found none.
It is criminal history that our folks have looked up, and we can show you that later.
It's outside of the county of Fresno, though, maybe?
I'm not certain where that criminal history is. I do know that he has criminal history, though.
Do you know if he grew up in the Fresno area?
I know that he has been in the Fresno area for many years. I don't know where he actually grew up.
You said his victims, I believe you said he said something about not liking white people. Were the victims all white, or can you get some sense of their...
All the victims today were white males, and we don't have them identified yet. The individual, the security guard that was shot the other day, is also a white male.
So, Chief, again, right now, the streets are going to be closed for any idea how long?
I would anticipate Fulton Street, Van Ness Street, Divisadero Street, between these locations being closed for the better part of a day. We have a lot of shell casings that are outstanding. We also have one individual that is still in the area that is deceased, so we'll have the coroner's office come out, and but they'll be processing this area for evidence, and so we'll have this closed down for several hours.
I know you mentioned ShotSpotter. How crucial was this technology in order to help you guys get a handle of the situation as quickly as...
Well, very simply put, if we did not have the ShotSpotter activation alerts, our officers would not have responded to this area as quickly as they did. And since this individual was running from the last shooting incident, there had been a good chance that he would have escaped the area prior to us arriving. So, fortunately, we were here within in less than a minute.
One of the witnesses in this area...
Pardon? We do not know. Our detectives are with him downtown. There'll be an interview of this individual, a very detailed and thorough interview of him, trying to determine why he did what he did.
Do you know if he had a vehicle or a bicycle or anything that he came to this area?
We have no indication that he arrived in a vehicle or was on a bicycle. Based on everything we know, he was on foot. But again, that may be proven to be different later.
One of the witnesses told us that he actually jumped in a white SUV with a woman driving in the way. Is that
Not accurate because we have him in custody, and there wouldn't have been time for that to occur. He actually, all 4 of these shooting incidents, the 3 that were shot and killed, as well as the one that was shot at and missed, all of those occurred within about 1 minute. He was taken into custody shortly after that by our officers.
Where was he? He wasn't injured.
He was not injured.
where was he arrested? Was it right on?
He was apprehended right here at Divisadero in Fulton, behind me, and he was running southbound from the last shooting that occurred at Catholic Charities.
Is it...
We do not know where that firearm is. He could have tossed it just before we made contact, or at some point after that last shooting. But we've got the area secured and we're looking, and hopefully no one finds that weapon. If they do, please contact us.
Do you know what type of gun it is?
It's I can tell you that the rounds that he had on him were .357 caliber. The rounds that were used at the Motel 6 were .357s, and he had speed loaders on him as well as .357 ammunition today.
In the proximity of today's 3 incidents, were they within a block, or can you characterize that?
They were within 1 block. Mildreda and Fulton, Fulton and Van Ness are 1 block from each other, and Mildreda is the street in which he traveled after he left the Van Ness area.
And did he have ammunition on him still, or no?
He had not only ammunition, .357 caliber rounds on him, he also had several speed loader magazines, or speed loaders for revolvers.
How many
I do not know that.
Chief, you said that he made a statement before he was arrested. Anything else that he said?
He's made some other comments, but I think we'll hold off on releasing what those statements are at this time. Again, just very, very fortunate today that he is in custody. Unfortunately, we have 3 people that are deceased, and our investigators have a lot of work to do in order to try to determine what happened today, the sequence of events, and our condolences go out to all of the families who've lost their loved ones.
We know he's killed 4 people since Thursday. Is there any possibility that you might look at him as a suspect in other cases?
Well, we're not aware of any other homicide cases that are similar to this, but certainly our folks will go back and look to see if there's anything else that he might have been involved with, especially since Thursday evening. So I'm sure we'll be briefing the media at a later time once we get more details, or if we need to modify any of the statements. But at this time, much of the information that I've been provided today. So thank you.
Chief, just one last question. Could you just detail the addresses when the incidents took place, the approximate time?
The 10:45 a.m. was the first shooting that occurred in the 300 block of North Van Ness. The second shooting occurred within a few seconds after that. That would have been right there at Van Ness and Mildreda. No one was hit. The third shooting, again, within a few seconds after that occurred on Fulton at Mildreda. And then the subsequent shooting was the 100 block of North Fulton. So 300 block of North Van Ness, 215 North Fulton, and I believe 149 North Fulton.
We don't know if this was chosen specifically because of the connection to Catholic Church.
It does not appear that there was any indication that was a reason for the shooting. Again, he started his shootings over on Van Ness, a block away from that location. So,
Chief, I know that you mentioned one of the victims was in the parking lot of Catholic Charities. Somebody had mentioned something about another victim having been at a bus stop. Do you know? Was that the case?
we know the suspect, Corey Muhammad, was at a bus stop. That's where he reloaded, and we know that he had shot 2 people within about a half a block of each other. One in the Catholic Charities parking lot, the other one nearby. I do not know if he was at a bus stop. I do know that's where he reloaded his weapon.
We see crimes like these happening in other communities all across the country. I don't remember this happening, anything of this extreme, at least in Fresno. What is your message to families at home today?
Well, what we know is, unfortunately, this was a random act of violence. These individuals that were chosen today did not do anything to deserve what they got. These were unprovoked attacks by an individual that was intent on carrying out homicides today, and he did that. And fortunately, we have him in custody. And I think it'd be a much different news conference if I were standing here today and he was still outstanding. There'd be a great amount of fear in this community. But fortunately, our officers took him into custody, and people do not have to worry, at least about this individual being out and about injuring anyone else.
Is there anything your officers have already learned from this experience?
Well, the importance, I think, today is responding to these calls immediately. And fortunately, the technology of ShotSpotter allowed us to do that. And we're very fortunate this individual gave up when he did and did not put up any resistance. Again, we're very grateful that we have him in custody, but very saddened by the fact that we have 3 people killed in our city today.
Do we know if the people in the businesses, law firms, et cetera, that are down the street, are they still on lockdown, or are they able to come out now?
Well, we have secured this area. We do not want people walking around and perhaps causing us to have to remove them from the area. But there's a lot of evidence in the area that we still haven't located, and we want to make sure that we do a thorough job so we can prosecute this individual.
So how many active scenes do you have?
We have every reason to believe that he was alone here and acted by himself. In terms of the name, its last name was Muhammad, Muhammad. First of Corey, Kori. Middle name of Ali, Ali. And he's 39 years of age, and he goes by the nickname you'll see of Black Jesus.
And are you going to release a picture of him?
We may release a photo at some point in time, depending on how this investigation proceeds, but we have some other witnesses to contact in the area.
Chief, how many crime scenes do you have?
We have 4 crime scenes that are out here in this about a 1.5 by 1.5 block area.
So one is here, can you mention?
We also have a area secured that is on M Street, just south of Fresno, next to police headquarters. That's where the PG&E driver came to to drop off the passenger.
There's always the fear with crimes like this that there could be a copycat. Is that something that your officers are very mindful about?
Well, there's always that potential, but we want to calm any fears that are out there today and not cause anybody else to be fearful of someone else who may do something similar. But fortunately, right now, we have a lot of work to do on this case, but fortunately, we have the individual in custody. Okay? Thank you.
Again, there you have Fresno Police Chief Jerry Dyer just wrapping up the news conference out here at the corner of Fulton and Divisadero Streets. Again, word that 39-year-old Corey Ali Muhammad has been arrested for the shootings that took place this morning here. They do not believe that he was acting with anyone else. They believe he was acting alone. And we did receive clarification there and confirmation that there have been 3 people killed this morning. However, Muhammad will be facing charges for 4 murders, including the murder of a security guard at Motel 6 last week in central Fresno along Blackstone. 2 of the victims found in the proximity of Catholic Charities. Another victim, a PG&E worker, a passenger in a PG&E truck driven to Fresno Police Headquarters. So again, just to give you an idea of the closures that will still remain in effect for several hours. If you've got business in downtown Fresno, please avoid this area if you can. Fulton Street, Divisadero, Van Ness, and Mildreda, all of those streets are closed. So if you can get to downtown via Highway 99 instead, or maybe the 41, that might be a better idea for you, as police will be out here again collecting shell casings, as well as looking for the weapon that was used in these killings this morning. Police will be out here for quite a while, but as we just heard Police Chief Dyer say, they believe that they've got the only gunman that was involved in the shootings this morning. Live in Central Fresno, Liz Gonzalez, Fox 26 News.